Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are in the world. Eamon Darcy is my name. I'm the founder of QEQA, the Quantum Education Centre of West Australia. And it's with great pleasure that I bring to you our inaugural Quantum Girls panel discussion with the Quantum Girls project management team. And we'll be talking about why schoolgirls don't continue on with their studies in science. Why do they feel uncomfortable? And what are we going to do about it? What is the Quantum Girls Project going to achieve? We've been funded by the Australian federal government. Thank you for that. Just under $1 million to address the underrepresentation of schoolgirls in STEM in general, and in quantum physics, quantum science, and quantum computing. So, with no further ado, let me bring on the team, the management team, and let's get discussing Quantum Girls. I'll bring on, here we have Emeritus Professor from WA, Professor David Blair. We have the Professor Vale Dawson, the science. What are you, Vale? You're the.
Well, I'm a professor
of science education.
That's right, Professor of Science Education at UWA. So that's wonderful. And then from the Palsy Supercomputing Research Center, we have Anne Backhouse, who is in charge of education and outreach at Palsy. And I can't wait to get this discussion started. So, David, I might start with you. Now, you started the Einstein-First Project many years ago, and Quantum Girls, in many ways, is an extension of that. Could you elaborate on what the Einstein-First Project is?
Yeah, so for many years I've thought that it was a shame that children learn 19th century science at school and they don't learn the most important aspects of modern science today, which affects all of us. Most children finish school science in year 10, so we believe that we ought to allow all children to share our best understanding of the universe by year 10, and that means starting very early and not making them make some sort of drastic shift in their thinking from the Newtonian thinking of the 19th century to the quantum thinking of the 21st century. So we started a program doing lots of trials, and one of the most noticeable thing in these trials was we were testing kids' attitudes, and amongst teenage kids, we found that the girls entered the trials with a very low score, and they came out with scores just as good as the boys. So it was, yes. And then we thought, well, maybe this is just because we got a great presenter. So then we had tried a couple of different presenters. Then we tried it in Indonesia in another language. And more recently, collaborators have been trying it in Italy and in India. And our latest news is that there's a group trying to start it in Colombia in South America. So many people have realized that this is a great thing to do, but we then realized that this was an opportunity now to do more, and particularly more. Teamed up with Jingbo Wang, who's co-director of our Quantum Girls project. We put in a proposal where we would combine quantum computing, the absolute frontier of computing today, with quantum science, which we had been teaching starting with 7-year-olds and taking it up to 15-year-olds. So we're now putting this all together to create a big package in this project. What our plan is to get 100 schools across Australia are participating in a whole range of activities, which I could tell you about later.
David, that is just wonderful. What an exciting opportunity for young people. I might go to Professor Dawson Vale. What is the problem with young girls in science at the moment? Why are they not continuing in general, feeling comfortable to continue from year 10 onwards? Can you tell us what the situation is there, please?
So, Edmund, you've asked me a question that will take much longer than we have to respond. Certainly, there's been a huge amount of research done initially in the 80s and 90s, and the research there showed that subjects like maths and physics were considered to be male subjects, that boys and men did, and not for girls. That then led to a sort of 30-year, I guess, effort, and Professor Blair's work is really part of that, is ensuring that girls can actually see themselves being successful in physics and maths. So I'll just say two things about research now. Certainly the engagement and awareness and attitudes are incredibly important. One of the things which is very difficult still to tackle is girls do lack confidence, and in terms of students' subject choices, once they can choose after year 10, is students choose subjects that they believe that they can be successful in. So I think projects like this can go a long way to improving girls' confidence, their self-efficacy. I know that Professor Blair's Einstein-First Program has a lot of female presenters, and Quantum Girls, just from the name, as you can tell, will also have females as role models for students. I'll stop there.
Oh, Vale, that's absolutely terrific. Thank you for that. We've even got some questions coming in on that. But you're right. Now, just very quickly, a follow-up question, though. There is no reason at all, girls are as good as boys at learning science and physics, maths, and the quantum stuff, aren't they? Is that what the facts show us?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Let me just add one thing in response to Vale's comment. The funny thing about our Einstein-First project is that we were making no special efforts for bringing in the girls. We just wanted to do good education. We knew that good education meant doing activity-based learning, involving students' whole bodies, not just reading stuff out of books, we were really quite surprised when we discovered this gender effect, because we weren't looking for it and we weren't aiming for it. We were just aiming to do good education. But then when we analysed it, we saw that we were doing all the right things to boost girls' confidence, and it really does boost their confidence. It boosts their interest in science. They come in with maybe a 40% score on an attitude test where we ask them about their interest, and they come out with an 80% or 90% score.
Oh, that is amazing.
I think if you go to the other end of the spectrum too, right? Like, so we work with users, scientists, and researchers of the supercomputers, right? Then if we don't, it's critical to get them where we're talking about it, right, in those early years, because if you don't, all the way through, you lose girls and women, etc. You lose them through the pipeline, and then you come out on the other end, and many high-performance computing centers, such as PASI, have maybe 10% women working there. So it's quite critical to do the intercept and show the importance of getting girls to stay in, right? To stay in the game, because there's a lot of cool stuff going on, and they're missing out.
Oh, there's a lot of cool stuff going on. Things like quantum teleportation, which is, I might even get, David to talk about it later, but something that is impossible in the classical world, in the quantum realm, is very easily done and has been done many, many times. So it is so exciting, Anne. And I did want to just check with you. Can you tell us a bit about what what Palsy are doing in the quantum space at the moment?
Yeah, so we've got a few things going on in the quantum space. We're pretty excited about it, and there's more things coming on board every day. We get a lot of requests from all levels across, right? From primary, secondary, tertiary, and on into science and researchers. We have, for example, a partnership with Quantum Brilliance. So we've got the first room temperature quantum computer in the world to be sitting inside a supercomputing center next to Photonics, our main supercomputer. We have a partnership with UWA for the Quantum Education Hub. And we had a World Quantum Day, which you showed in the beginning, right? Which yes. We had some 140 people attending over 2.5 hours. That was pretty exciting, doing lots of activities. We have annual internships, and the last 2 years, about 10% of those internship projects. We've had about 40 total interns, and about 4 of those have been focused on quantum. And then we talk with students and do outreach with quantum. And there's a lot of interest from girls and boys in secondary when we do work experience with them. A shared equal interest.
Oh, absolutely. I always say I have never spoken, lectured on quantum physics or quantum computing to a young person who's not been absolutely amazed by it and really interested in it. So, look, before we get to the project, David, I might come back to you again. What exactly is quantum physics? And I'm asked a lot of time, do you have to be clever to do quantum physics? So maybe you could answer those two things.
Well, yeah. So where did quantum physics begin? I guess it began, maybe you could say, with the discovery of the electron, which was in the very end of the 19th century, but then it was the discovery of the photon. And there were many decades of controversy before people accepted it. And as most people know, even Einstein, who really discovered or was a key part of the discovery of quantum physics, hated the intrinsic implications of his discovery, which is that the universe is statistical. And I guess that is the big difference between the quantum world and the classical world. Is the classical world is the old idea of the clockwork universe, and the quantum world is a world where everything is governed by probability. And if you once you start to that, but also look for it and see where we see the effects of it, the quantum world is all around us. We see the quantum world when we look at a partial reflection in a window. We see the quantum world when we're looking at stars, because many of the stars that we look at with our eyes, what's coming into our eyes is a stream of photons that might be tens or hundreds or thousands of kilometers apart. They are just coming in one at a time as these little sort of bullety, wavy things, as we say to children. So then what has come out of it? Well, what came out of it was the photoelectric effect, which is what powers solar panels. Einstein won the Nobel Prize for that. He didn't win the Nobel Prize for black holes and all that sort of stuff that people associate with him. He won the Nobel Prize for the quantum physics. And then there are many things around us that are entirely quantum. One of the things I like to talk about are these MRI machines, these medical imaging machines that give 3D pictures of the insides of our body. Well, they entirely depend on quantum physics. The semiconductors in our mobile phones and in our computers all depends on quantum physics. So quantum physics is behind everything. And I think there've been analyses to say that something like 80% of the European economy is founded on quantum physics. It's that number might be wrong. It might only be 40%, but it's something outrageously large. And as time goes on, quantum physics becomes more and more important, particularly with this amazing revolution of quantum computers that is just coming on us now.
Yes, wonderfully said. Thank you. Vale, look, you alluded to before how schoolgirls aren't continuing with their science studies, and yourself a professor of science education. What can the Quantum Girls Project do? And what would you say to a primary or secondary school child today? What should they do? So what can the project do, and what should they do?
Okay, well, I should also say that part of my role of being a professor of science education is I do teach people who are becoming secondary science teachers, and I myself was a secondary science teacher, so I have actually spoken to a lot of children over that time. And I have to say that I am absolutely passionate about science, and I unashamedly, both within and outside of my work, promote the importance of science. And very much as David said with these examples, use this sort of, you can't understand the world that you live in unless you have a reasonable understanding of science. So I'm not saying that everyone needs to become an astrophysicist, but it is really important to be engaged with science, whether you continue it beyond year 11 and 12, to read about science, to watch programs about science, to understand the things that you use that are associated with science. And I know, for example, that the Einstein-First Program has been doing some work on climate change curriculum. If we look at the problems that this world faces, it is more than likely that quantum physics and other aspects are going to be part of the solution. So when I'm talking to young people, I guess that's and also to their future, these future teachers, that's the message. In life we want to understand things, and science is a pathway to doing that.
Yes, thank you.
And
yes, David.
If I could add something to this, because I'm glad you raised the importance of training teachers, because we started the Einstein-First project with PhD students who were developing programs, and then we went into the classrooms and we tried programs. But that's obviously not a viable way of getting science taught in our nearly 10,000 schools in Australia. So we then embarked in a program of trying to teach the teachers. Now, a lot of people are really frightened of quantum science because, as Eamon suggested, many people think that it's very difficult and very complicated, and you have to be a genius and an astrophysicist to understand it. I want to just tell you about the first time we did a trial. we did a program with 11-year-old kids, and it was called Curved Space and Quantum Weirdness.
Yes.
And we did something like a 6-week program with these kids, and we tested them, and and got their comments and things. And the most astonishing thing about this program was that the kids were not astonished at all.
Yes.
They took it in their stride. So all this stuff that we find really weird, kids can just take in their stride. So talk about how quantum computers are. Us brought up in the 19th century mindset, it is really weird. I believe that the kids that go through our program will not find it weird at all. It will be part of their thinking. And that's what we mean by quantum thinking. It's a different way of thinking about the world.
Yes. And do you have anything to add to that with your experience?
Yeah, so I completely agree with that quantum mindset or STEM mindset. I like everyone on this call and very passionate about that. And I think where some of the hesitancy or the feeling like this isn't for me is because sometimes science, technology, engineering, maths are put in a box, and then they're hard boxes, right?
Yes.
Whereas if we make it about everything you do, everything you learn, everything around us, it's just part of what we study and who we are in the world we live in. We take it out of the boxes and make and normalize it in everything we do, right? Everything we study, every subject we study, there should be curiosity and investigation and analysis and questioning and all of those things that are STEM, right? But it pops out of that box and it's everywhere.
Look, absolutely. Well, thank you. Well, there's some questions have come in now, so I'll put them to the entire panel, and please just start answering if you think you can contribute. So this is a good question. The project's called Quantum Girls. Does that mean that schoolboys can't join in? I know you like that, David.
I'm so pleased to have had that question, because I really wanted to call it Quantum Girls, Boys Welcome, because of course we're not going to exclude anybody from this program, but we want to make it friendly to girls. We want to have female role models, because there are plenty of them out there. We don't want to create the idea that this is just a boys' subject, as you said. One of you said earlier. We need to, and so all boys will of course be welcome. Anybody will be welcome to take part in our programs.
Yes, indeed. We will have specific events for girls, but yeah, boys, there are so many resources coming up on the website that obviously we want everybody to learn it. But we do want some events where girls feel comfortable. And I think that helps. A great question come here from Facebook. Are there similar projects happening elsewhere in the world?
There's an enormous amount of quantum education. Our Einstein-First project is part of a big international collaboration called the Einsteinian Physics Education Research Collaboration. It comes out of the University of Copenhagen, which is one of the great centers for quantum physics, where Niels Bohr came from. And it's also being led out of CERN, the Nuclear Particle Physics Center in Europe. And they have run a regular program that's called IMPRESS, which is an acronym, but it's an international seminar, a little bit like this, but a seminar of academics and conferences that bring all these people together. We have some of our key members come from Korea, come from Norway, Germany, Italy, Brazil, and our Australians, but all over the world we find lots of people interested in it. There's one other thing I wanted to say which relates to education, and that's that at first we found many teachers were very reluctant and lacked the confidence to be able to teach these things. And we had to learn how to make it easy for the teachers. And what we find is that because all of our learning is based on doing things with activities, simple activities and toys. You know, we have toy photons and we have toy electrons and all sorts of toy atoms and things to make it sort of friendly and fun. Now, what we discovered is if we introduce the same topics to the teachers with the same toys,
yes,
they find this quite easy and they get the concepts. And then once you've got the concept from the activity, it's so hard. Because really, if you think this quantum mindset actually makes it much easier to think about many, many things. Quantum physics explains many things much better than the old-fashioned electromagnetism, which is scarily mathematically complicated. But if you analyze it in terms of photons and in terms of the quantum description, things become much easier to understand.
Yes, wonderful. I'm just very conscious of time. We've got a few minutes left, but I think while the questions are coming in, we'll carry on. There's a question here which Anne may be able to answer. Are there any industries in particular that will benefit from quantum computing?
Oh, it's early days, right? There's almost every industry is getting into the fray. So what we're finding at the Supercomputing Center, right, is not that it's necessarily an either. Quantum computers aren't going to take over supercomputers, right? Supercomputers do certain things really well. Quantum computers do different things really well, right? So how we see it is that there's a blend, right? So those areas, those domains that have a blend of the very kind of, bytes 0, 1, 0, 1, right? Rather than the more probabilistic quantum areas, those are the ones that'll do well. So finance, for example, and a portfolio.
Yes, finance.
There's many ways, right, that you can put your portfolio together. So that's always one that comes up. If you're a traveling salesman, right, that's always the typical, problem that comes up. But those types of things. So there are certain industries that lend themselves, and there are many, many, many. I think we looked at the number of conferences. There's something like 1,600 conferences coming up on this topic to figure out where can we use this, right? It's coming in, where and how can we use it? So everybody is getting on there and running. Right.
Oh, isn't that amazing? If I can add to that as well, I think the area of cybersecurity, which of course is an absolutely huge area, quantum computing is very much affecting that with post-quantum cryptography, which we won't go into now, but it's basically, it's decrypted the internet. So where do we go from here? I think the important thing for a young person out there is to know that you have got somewhere to go that will help you get into this incredible industry that is really going to change the world. And look, in conclusion, I'd like you all, the three of you, just to individually, starting with you, Vale, if you can say, what would be your advice to a young school child who's heard about quantum physics and quantum science, quantum sensing and quantum computing, and they want to know more? Vale.
Well, that's a very hard question to ask me, being the first one. Certainly universities, when we want to look at things that are, at the cutting edge, universities are a good place. And of course, I would encourage them to ask their teachers and keep asking and to be curious.
Oh, that's the word, isn't it? Curious. Einstein always referred to that. Anne, what would your advice to a young school child be?
Similarly, I would say be curious, explore, have fun, and last but certainly not least, join in.
Yeah, do something, join in, and don't leave it to other people. And David, if we can have the last word from you, and I would like to personally congratulate you on the Einstein-First project. It's been enormous, and it's only going to get better with the Quantum Girls project. But what would your advice to a young school child, the parents of whom might be watching this now, and they might be watching it, what would your advice be?
Well, I hope that we will make all this science really exciting for the young people. And then my advice to all young people is follow your passion. So if we can make you passionate about it, then follow your passion, because you'll do well at whatever you do if you follow your passion. If we teach you about it and it doesn't become your passion, no problem at all. But follow your passion, and that's the way to have a successful and fulfilling life.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd like to thank the three of you, and I'm sure our audience would as well. It's been wonderful, and again, thank you very much, and a big round of applause to the three of you.
Thank you, Eamon, for organising it.
Pleasure. So this concludes our first Quantum Girls panel discussion, and I think you will agree it's exciting. There's just so much happening at the moment. Like Anne was saying, there's an awful lot happening in this area. I'd like to also just show you what Jeff Bezos is saying, and that is that quantum computing is the future. I'm not exaggerating when I say it'll change everything. So every industry, this is going to change. And then, like David and Vale were saying, the actual science is so interesting. When scientists first, and this is 100 years ago, got the technology to look inside an atom, they were literally amazed at the weirdness of the way particles inside our own body, the way they act and react to their environment. And that started it all off. And it really is just amazing. So look, very quickly, next week, we're going to show some quantum card games and quantum games. So that'll be very interesting, showing some of this weirdness. And the week after that, by the way, it's always on a Thursday at 6:30. So remember to share it with your networks. The week after that, we've got a wonderful opportunity to speak to Anisha Muster. And Anisha is a lady in New York who has set up the largest quantum startup in the whole of New York, possibly in the whole of America. It's really taken off in quantum information. She started it when she was 14. When she was 14 years old, she was that fascinated in quantum physics and quantum computing that she started a startup. And I always say to the young girls and the young boys here in WA, you can do the same thing. The industry is ready and wanting to accept projects from everybody. So knowing more about this industry will always help you. So parents out there, school teachers, schools, start sharing these discussions we'll be having every week. And very soon we'll have some young person from WA with their own quantum startup and teaching the world in some area. Australia, incidentally, is doing very well. And on that note, thank you all very much and see you next week. Bye now.